3 minutes rather after 9 a.m. Central African Time. You are tuned into Salam Media News and Views. My name is Zahid Jadwit. And for this segment, of course, this week's Jummah Inspiration segment, we're going to have a special focus on the etiquettes of social media. Should I tweet, post, delete? I love that. Milana Muhammad Amir from the Darul Ihsan Humanitarian Center joins us this morning. Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Maulana, and welcome to the show.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu, Mr. Brother, and jazakumullahu khair for the opportunity.
Maulana, I think with the proliferation of social media, there's a lot that we've got to navigate and are yet to understand about the etiquettes of social media. How do we maneuver? How do we navigate through this terrain of the internet, of course, with a lot going on there, people having various and diverse views. There's things that you should do, not do. And we are obviously we've been adapted and we are used to social interaction in physical conditions. But of course, since the COVID-19 pandemic, things have changed quite drastically, and a lot more of our interactions are now taking place via digital platforms. Talk to us about the importance of social media etiquette for a Muslim specifically.
Yes, indeed. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Nahmadu wa nusalli ala rasulih al-Nabi al-Kareem. You have raised certain important and most pertinent points in your introduction, your questions. I think firstly, we do all understand and realize that social media is something that has really taken the world by storm. It was something that we never had, and by its advent and invention, it really brought a new dimension to the way that people communicate, to the way that the world actually operates. And it brought a new meaning to a lot of things in terms of business, in terms of communication and travel. And of course, this all has its advantages and benefits, but it is not without its perils and challenges. And this is where the faith of a believer, the etiquette of a believer, and the commands of the Quran al-Kareem and the Sunnah actually come to the fore. These are important aspects for us to reflect upon and also for us to discuss, because what we do find generally is that the social media space is something that is being largely, if I can use a very open and loose word, is being abused. A lot of harm and a lot of haram is taking place on this space, and a lot of it is done by Muslims. So we've got to ask ourselves very honestly and seriously that what is our role and how should we be approaching this particular tool or channel, which has a great amount of potential. It has a lot of benefits, it has a lot of good to it, and it can bring a lot of good to the world. Not like any other invention or any other vehicle or channel that is created through technology and advancement. If it is misused and if it is further abused, then it can cause a great amount of harm. So yes, indeed, I think we've got to look at this aspect very seriously, and we've got to then diagnose the areas of weakness, the problem areas that we are facing as far as this particular space is concerned. And we as individuals firstly, and as a community, really need to ask ourselves, where do we place ourselves in all of this, and how do we respond to the challenges that the social media brings to us?
Yes, of course. And with the advent of social media, there has been this rise in terms of this narcissistic culture, whereby users are very often have this tendency and this obsession and compulsion to go and post whatever they are doing, wherever they are, with very little regard to the circumstances. Of course, it can get tricky when we seem to be insensitive as to what we are posting. But of course, this obsession and this compulsion to post everything that we are doing, I believe, stems from this quest for external validation. You know, be it in the form of likes or retweets, reposts, resharing, be that as it may. What is the Islamic method of remedying this, addressing this quest for external validation?
Yes, that's again another good point that you raise, and the question that you bring forward is pertinent. I think what social media really has done is that it has created a space for people to actually behave in a manner that they would not normally behave when in person. And this is the deceptive part of social media, because you will find people saying things and doing things on social media that is completely out of character. And as you have referred to it as narcissistic behavior. So it gives that type of veil, or it gives that type of false protection, where a person can actually pretend or behave in a way that is unbecoming, or not, or it could behave out of character, and a person could get away with it. And that is what we see happening on social media. So I think as believers, we got to really put ourselves into a space of reality. That at the end of the day, whether it is social media, whether we're communicating via any electronic medium, or we're communicating in person, we got to understand that we are always accountable to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the Noble Quran is filled with advices as far as effective communication is concerned, honest communication is concerned, the importance of upholding the truth, the importance of upholding etiquette and honor and respect. And this is what we find is a myth as far as social media communication is concerned. So the Quran al-Karim teaches us the presence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَهُوَ مَعَكُمْ أَيْنَمَا كُنْتُمْ. Almighty Allah is with you. Regard His presence all the time. He is with you wherever you are. وَاللَّهُ مُتَقَلَّبَكُمْ وَمَثْوَاكُمْ. Allah is with you in your private life, in your individual life, and Allah is with you when you are in public, whether you are in the midst of people or you are alone. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is fully aware and is present and is recording, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is fully aware of your words, your deeds, your moves, your thoughts, and everything that happens within a person. So in that respect, I think a believer has got to be extremely cautious and conscious about the way that he conducts himself as far as the social media space is concerned. And there are a number of etiquettes or rules that we can follow. And that is something that I think should be incorporated into our syllabi, be it the madrasa, be it in our Islamic school, or generally through talks, through workshops, through programs. We should take this matter to another level where we are able to now, we are able to begin to talk about it publicly. We begin to workshop it, unpack it, and teach people the way that we should be going about things on social media. What do we post? What don't we post? What are the areas of sensitive information? How should we broadcasting? Unverified comments, statements that cause a whole amount of confusion and disorder in public, and the airing of grievances, frustrations, personal problems on social media, people trying to settle their disputes in public. There's absolutely a complete, what can we say, a complete loss of focus, or a complete disorder that has now taken a hold of people as far as this aspect is concerned. And it is something that really needs our attention and the necessary steps to actually correct ourselves in this particular space.
Mm. I think a very important point mentioned there, Mulana, about these workshops and conversations that need to be had about managing your social media use. And I think this is something that's going to be, we're going to have to engage in these sort of robust discussions about social media, the guidelines in using them and the etiquettes while using them. All very important and pertinent points which need to be discussed, especially as our use of these devices and these methods of communication are on the rise. But just quickly, I think if you could just share with us, how exactly do we navigate through this now? Where do we draw the line? Should I just go ahead and purge my social media accounts, or if there is some room to be able to use these social media accounts without actually going beyond uh, going crossing any boundaries, where exactly are those boundaries for me as a Muslim when it comes to using social media?
Yeah, so that's again a very good suggestion, and I think a question in terms of our application and the takeaway point from this particular discussion. Islam teaches us the way of balance and moderation. Our deen is a deen of moderation. We are ummat wasata. We do not take any particular extreme or any particular radical position in any situation. So social media is here to stay. It's something that we cannot wish away, and it's something that we cannot ignore either. So therefore, we've got to embrace it, and we've got to embrace it with the challenges, and we've got to embrace it in a way that we are able to actually exact the benefit from it and protect ourselves from the harm. I think that would be the middle part, and that would be the balance that we need to strike. However, it's not as easy as we speak about it, because we know that the challenges are immense. They are huge. And sometimes these things are beyond us. We can see what's happening to our youth as far as social media is concerned. It's actually ravaging marriages, it's breaking down relationships. People's interaction on social media, rather, we should say, is causing this to happen. So I think the first thing would be to take a balanced and a moderate approach, to take an intellectual approach to it, to understand the pros and the cons, and to embrace the benefits, and to be able to be firm and strongly abhor, or we won't say abhor, but we would resist the temptations and the wrong that is on it, although we are cognizant that this is something which is quite a challenge and it is difficult to manage. Secondly, I think the important thing is to raise our consciousness. If we are able to understand the presence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala more greatly in our lives, through the dhikr of Allah, through meditation, through Quran tilawah, through good character, through goodness, through good acts, through good a'mal, through becoming a good person, then it is natural that only good will flow from a person. So whether a person is in social media, whether a person is in public, whether a person is in private, wherever a person would be, if the person has become a good human being, built a good character, then that character will show through in all aspects of his life, whether he is on social media or out of social media. So that should be the focus as far as our character building is concerned, because what is being reflected on social media is actually what is within people. It is the anger that's within people. It is the deceptive nature that is within people. It is this aggression that is within people that is showing itself on social media. Social media is merely the mirror. It is just the vehicle that is being used to vent all the evil traits that are within people. So it's actually something that is very reflective of our inner condition. And that is what needs a reformation. That's what needs rectification. And therefore, we should all be engaging individually and collectively in a process of holistic reformation of our character, reformation of our speech, reformation of the way that we communicate, reformation of the way that we use our time, and reformation of the way that we use technology. So there are multiple facets to this aspect, and that is why I think that we really need to workshop it. We really need to take this thing, to a level where it now becomes a part of a learning process. It becomes part of our education, because we cannot ignore the harms of it, and nor can we deprive ourselves of the benefit of it. So I think in the final analysis, it's something that we do not wish away completely. We cannot completely divorce ourselves from it or ignore it. That would be a type of a very difficult position, because people use social media and technology for everything, for business and other uses. So it will be difficult to ask people to completely cut themselves off. And on the other hand, we've got to avoid the extreme of over-engrossment and of using it, misusing it, and using it in ways that brings harm to our spirituality and could bring harm to the community at large.
Absolutely. And I think that actually, the point you mentioned, Milana, about deriving maximum benefit and minimizing the harms of these platforms, something that it reminds me of is, in fact, a book by Professor Carl Newport. It's called Digital Minimalism, and it, in fact, dives quite deep into that whole idea about deriving maximum benefit while avoiding the harms of social media. So I do recommend that the listeners, as well as yourself, Mulana, if you'd be keen to have a look at that. But we'll leave it at that. Shukran so much for joining us.
Shukran, Jazakallah khair for the opportunity and all the best for the Jummah.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. That was Mulana Muhammad Amir from Dar al Ihsan speaking to us about the etiquettes of social media, an incredibly important conversation that needs to be held.